This is a quick demo of the O'Tool, still in prototype stage. The triggering modes are still being worked on, so they're not quite up to where I want them to be yet. But this demo is mostly about showing the different modes. Right now I have an AFG going into channel 1, creating the basic display. And I have the scope set for single channel mode. It's set for 100 microseconds per division, 10 volts plus minus 10 volt scale, and it's triggering off of input number 1. If I change this to the 5 volt scale, it's now showing this plus minus 5 volt waveform at closer to full scale. If I turn the triggering off, then the oscillation just is free running. I have a Doepfer LFO going into channel 2, and that's patched into the FM of the AFG, but the FM knob is turned down. If I go to the dual trace mode, which is, there's 2 dual trace modes. This one is layered on top of each other, so one trace is red, one trace is green. The other dual trace mode is above and below each other, so the first channel here, the second channel here. The AFG is not yet being modulated by the LFO, so when I turn the FM knob up, and since the LFO is really what's creating the shape, we'll trigger off of the LFO instead of off of the first channel. So now we're seeing the AFG modulated by this LFO. And if we slow the LFO down, then it looks like that. And if we go to free running mode, then it's just either one is just moving around wherever they happen. Now if we slow the LFO down and turn the time base to a slower time base, once the time base gets too slow, it's often more useful to turn the trigger off. And if we keep slowing the time base down, the band that you're seeing is the trace is being faded out to black just before the new trace comes in, rather than clear the whole screen and draw the new trace. It's kind of more obvious when you're at a slower rate. So the new trace is on the left side of the gray band that you're seeing. And that band is the old trace being faded out before the new one starts showing up. This is the slowest sweep mode, which is about 30 seconds to get across the screen. This is levels mode for the O'Tool. It's showing basically how much time the waveforms spend at the various levels at the different voltages. So what we're looking at right now are a pair of outputs from the AFG. The first channel is getting a sine wave, the second channel is getting the triangle wave, and the shading of the levels mode, because it's showing how much time the waveform spends at different levels, that shading gives you somewhat of a clue as to the shape of the waveform. You'll notice that the first one is just slightly darker in the center and lighter at the top and bottom compared to the second one, which is evenly lit all the way through. The sine wave, because it ramps up and down at different speeds, it spends less time at the center of the voltages as it does when it reaches the tops and the bottom of the waveform. If we were to look instead at a square wave, you can see the square wave spends almost all its time at the top and the bottom and very little time in between. So you just see two little bars at the top and at the bottom. Now these modes are directly coupled. We do actually have an AC coupled mode that's selectable here. But for the most part you use this as a DC coupled display, and unlike the VU and the peak meter, which are always AC coupled, this can show you the waveform as it's going up and down in slower frequencies. So if I take the oscillator and I slow it down, now you can see the triangle wave slowly going up and down and the square wave toggling between the top voltage and the bottom voltage. So this is showing you the time that it's spending at the different voltages, and essentially showing you the shape by doing that. Now for slow moving shapes like this, sometimes it's more useful to see a longer period of time. So we have a setting here for slow, and that gives you a average over a longer period of time.